Next item, I'm going to turn over to Mr. McGeaney for his for words on the Common Core.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to report that last evening we had our first of what I hope is a series of events, informational events with regards to the Common Core. Our speaker was Professor Sandra Stotsky, and I would deem it a real success because I measure it in two ways. One, it was very well attended. All of the stakeholders were represented. We had teachers, we had union reps, we had legislators, we had, of course, many parents. We had community members and from even outside of the city who also will be impacted by Common Core. And the second thing that I can say that in my mind made it successful is I got a real sense that those in attendance left there feeling that they needed to learn even more about Common Core, and indeed they do. It's a very important topic. It's probably, across the country, there is probably no hotter topic on education that exists today. I would like to, at the request of Sandra Stotsky, and I think it's the least we can do is to accommodate her request, and that is I'd like her position paper basically on Common Core. It's just two sides of one sheet of paper, and I'd like to have this go into the record of our minutes, if I may. Motion to receive on this.
Second.
Any of the other members who are, and thank you, by the way, all the members for your support of having this meeting and the support of our administration to help host it. But I'd very much like to hear the comments of any of the members, if they have any, about last night's event.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. McGeaney, thank you so much for inviting Dr. Stotsky. I learned a great deal of information, but yet I left with so many more questions.
Right.
I was asked by the press what my position was on Common Core, and I don't have one right now, and I don't expect to have one anytime soon. I am seeking out more information, trying to get other speakers to come on both sides. I will tell you that the basic premise of Common Core is something that I would support. The words itself, Common Core, the core of education, the purpose of making all of our states the same in the core of education. I was a product of educations between different states. I had moved between two different states, and it would be great to know that wherever you go, that basis, that baseline is all the same. But what I'm hearing about Common Core is, while that is, what we're trying to achieve here in Massachusetts, we go beyond that. And I think the worry is we won't be able to go beyond that, and we're not going to be able to go beyond that. That's the worry. That's what I'm getting right now out of Common Core. So some of the suggestions she had made was, we're not going to get out of it, but if we could revise it, if we could tweak it, and I would like to kind of follow that through, because there's no stopping it now, from what I understand. So I will be seeking out other speakers, trying to find out both sides of the story. With that being said, there's another burning issue when it comes to the Common Core and the park assessment pilot testing. I've been doing a lot of homework about that. I've been researching the process of it, the meaning of it. We've discussed it here. And if I'm wrong about anything that I'm going to say, please correct me. But from what I understand, letters have been sent home to parents notifying them that their child, if your classroom or your cluster or your grade level was selected, will be taking a park pilot assessment. I have not seen the letter. I do not believe there's any check boxes to opt in or out, and nor have I heard that that is an option. I did speak with Ms. Murtagh, and I asked her to explain to me exactly how the testing goes. And from what I understand, it could be a period of 3 to 5 days and up to 120 minutes each day that this Some children will be in testing. Some of the questions that I was asked by parents about not having their children take the test was, could they just be absent and they wouldn't have to take it? And what I found out was no, because just like MCAS, it'll be offered for a period of months. So they will get you and you will still be able to take it. There was some letters that were sent in about parents writing a note that they're opting their child out, and the legal department had said, no, that's not valid. So with these type of things being said, I'd also like it to be known that these same children will be taking MCAS. Excuse me. And I don't disagree with that, because that is something that your child, you will see the results, the district will see the results, and the park assessment, pilot, research, test, parents will never see the results. Our district will never see the results. Your child is taking a test for no benefit of ours. And I don't know about the rest of you, but when my child takes a test, even MCAS, I go over it with them. Look how you did. Look what the meaning of this test is. We're not getting any benefit from this. So what I see is attempting to require the participation of a minor in what is a research project is illegal, I believe. I do not think that any parent in Peabody, where I'm a school committee member and I have a voice to say it, should have to subject their child to this research test. We do not have lab rats here. I would not want my child to have to go through with it, and my opportunity to voice my opinion is here. With that being said, I would like to see another letter being sent out to these particular children that have been selected, and the parent can check a box, yes or no. If they check off no, I would like to have a clear set of guidelines as to what is going to happen to that child, what they will do for the day. They should be able to continue their regular educational studies. The parent should be able to decide if they want their child to be in a research pilot study. These are our children, my children. They're not the state's children. They're not anybody else's children. When letters get sent home, I get to see things. I get to know what's going on. I wouldn't let my child take a test where I'm never going to find out the results. I'm not even going to see the test. I don't even know what's being asked on the test. I don't think it's right. I am prepared to make a motion tonight that we allow any of the parents to opt out their children from the park assessment testing.
Second.
You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. McGeady. On the motion, Mr. Hockman.
Very respectfully, I would just like to make a point of order. I don't know that under the statutory scheme of this, we have the authority to take this vote. It's my understanding that the opt-out provision, and I say this very respectfully because I don't disagree with anything that's being said, it's my understanding that the opt-out provision for this assessment is at the state level, at the State House on Beacon Hill. And it's only the legislature's ability for this state in its entirety to opt out from this assessment. If we want to take a symbolic vote, I can certainly understand that, but I think we exceed our authority statutorily if we take a vote that I don't think that it has I don't think that it has any legal significance. It may have some symbolic significance, but not. I don't think we have the authority to have the students in this district have the choice to take this test or not. I think that the proper forum for that is at the State House.
Thank you. Mr. McGeady?
Well, Mr. Hockman, I respect your opinion. It's an opinion shared by the state and other states around the country, but there's growing opposition to that opinion, and quite frankly, I think it's a weak opinion at very best. I think there are many conflicting laws, and I'm not an attorney, but I've certainly read an awful lot about this. I do know this: we will not be, if this vote passes, we will not be the first community to allow parents to opt out. By the way, parents who have been completely shut out of the Common Core dialogue from the get-go. They've never been asked about it a bit, unlike the MCAS process, which had lots of vetting and lots of airings where the community and educators and all the stakeholders had a voice. That took many years to develop. This is coming through like a train wreck, and the people who are left out of the discussion way out in the cold were the parents. I think at a minimum, and by the way, I'm not recommending that parents opt their child out, but I most definitely support the parents' right to opt out for their child if that's what they want to do. I think we should give them that right. Other communities have done this in Massachusetts. I have not seen the National Guard come in and take the school committee members away. I don't think anything's going to happen. I think this is, as Ms. Carpenter said, this is a statement about a test that's on top of an MCAS test that the students will never learn the results of, the teachers will never learn the results of, the administrators will never learn the results of, some private entity at the state will learn those results. I am going to make a statement after this vote, too, because New York State, who has, like Massachusetts, a governor who very much wants the implementation of Common Core, he has backed away, not from Common Core, but the horrendously poor implementation of Common Core. He put together a committee to study the implementation of Common Core in New York. They came up with 7 or 8 very strong recommendations not to defeat Common Core. That would be my liking, quite frankly. But to say this has to be implemented very, very differently. So I totally support this motion. I think it's finally the parents are being, somewhat involved in this statement. And for those parents who feel very strongly as those people who are in favor of Common Core feel about how right it is, there are many parents and a growing number of people who feel equally strong that this is very wrong. The implementation more than anything else. So I'm very much going to support this. And again, I want to make it clear, this is not, when I vote in favor of this is not necessarily a recommendation to parents that they should opt out. It's only to say you have the right, because unlike statements made by Paul Revell, who was the previous head of education in Massachusetts, who made the statement last month that the children don't belong to the parents, they belong to all of us. Well, I think they kind of do. Parents have a right to decide what's best for their children. And this is one small opportunity to say, we support you in that.
Thank you. Mr. Hockman?
We live in this country under the rule of law, and laws are passed by legislators and legislatures. And I don't agree with many things that come out of Washington, D.C. I don't agree that people should lose their choice of doctor in the middle of cancer treatment or any other catastrophic treatment. But I don't see the city council in the city of Peabody or this Peabody School Committee or any other elected body taking up Obamacare or anything like that. And this is akin to Obamacare. That's what this is. And I agree that parents didn't have a voice, and for some reason legislators didn't have a voice, but it's beyond the scope of our office. It's beyond the scope of our office if the State Department of Education directs that we do this because this is a state policy. I believe it's beyond the scope of our office to vote to allow parents or to allow students to opt out of the exam. The statutory scheme of this is extremely clear. The opt-out provision is for states. Our state legislature, we could make a motion to ask our delegation to introduce legislation to opt out of the park. I'd be completely in favor of that. I'm not a fan of this exam either. But for us in Peabody, and I agree, I do see that there are other school committees that are taking these similar votes, and I don't know if there are legal ramifications or not. I don't know how the state or federal government are going to react. I don't know what people are going to do when these assessments are actually being offered. I do know that we as a democracy live under the rule of law. And if we're going to usurp somebody else's authority, I think it's inappropriate. I'm all in favor of making a motion to ask our state delegation, whether it be our representatives or senator, to introduce legislation at the State House. I would also be in favor of a vote that we write a letter to the governor and ask him to introduce legislation at the State House. I don't have any warm feelings about this Common Core as I see it either. I think it's a federal grab of states' rights and authority. I agree with you with that. But procedurally, I just can't ignore what the history of this country is. It's a representative democracy, and we just don't have, in my opinion, and it's I think it's more than just my opinion. I think the language is clear that it's for the state to opt out. It's just beyond the scope of what we do.
If I may respond. Mr. Hockman, I'm not going to try to convince you. I respect your opinion. We disagree on this matter. I will tell you that I align myself with the legal counsel that feels that park itself is illegal. I mean, that's a legal opinion also, and that's kind of the side of this that I fall on. I will tell you that in terms of following the rule of law, I think we are well grounded in this argument that we are on the side of the law. But if we're not, you mentioned history. Well, America has a very long and proud history of civil disobedience when the laws are wrong. And so if that's the case, so be it. The parents, the greatest stakeholders in this game. Let me tell you what Arnie Duncan, who's the U.S. Education Secretary, said about the parents as it relates to Common Core. He said, "It's fascinating to me that some of the pushback on Common Core Park is coming from sort of white suburban moms who all of a sudden their child isn't as brilliant as they thought they were." The disdain and contempt for the opinions of the parents is astounding. He should resign.
I think the whole Department of Education at the federal level should be abolished. I don't disagree with you with that. I think that the appointments that President Obama has made to this commission and to the Department of Education are appalling. I agree with you.
I think other people would like to speak.
We're going to turn it over to another private company for them to have. That I have a problem with. I have a problem when anybody, state, federal, private, municipal, anybody, says that you have no right to make a decision for your child. You know what? You can come and put me in handcuffs, because whoever says that to me is going to have a brick wall to go through. Last week we witnessed a law, and Mr. Hockman, you know more about the law than I ever will, and I certainly respect and I appreciate your opinion on it, again, because I may learn for something I feel differently. But last week we saw a law that it was okay to take a picture upskirting of a woman. That was okay by law. We didn't sit back and allow that. Yes, we went through the process, and when I had a state level change that law. But I don't think there was one person, one dad, one mom, thought that was going to be right and wasn't going to take the law in their own hands if it happened to somebody they loved. So yes, sometimes you have to revolt. You have to say, I don't care what the law says, but if you're going to keep something about my kid from me and share it with somebody else that I have no say into it, you're not getting that information, because it scares me. Now, again, I'm not recommending for parents not to have their kids take that test. I'm not at all. My kid was in school, they probably would take the test because they wouldn't want to feel pointed out, slighted, or what have you. But to tell the parent they don't have the option, you know what? I'm God-given right to have an option on how I'm going to have my kid brought up. So, to give a parent the option, why not? And what is going to happen? I don't know. But I can feel real good that I went to bed saying that I gave the option back to a parent who gave birth to that child, maybe not a natural birth, but is the one that feeds, clothes, educates, love. You're giving them the option. A few weeks ago, we set up a mission statement. And one of the things we put in there, we made sure we put in there that it was a parent's responsibility. So I don't care who the hell you are to tell me that you're going to give information to somebody else and not me about my kid. Just my opinion. So I will support this motion on the premises that you're not treating everyone equally, especially the parent. I could be wrong, but if I have to make a decision today, that's going to be my decision. I may change it later when I get more information, but I haven't. The state hasn't given me, the federal government hasn't given me information on this. That's it.
Thanks. Mr. Rossignol?
Thank you. I'm going to be a little bit all over the place, so bear with me. My child actually did get one of those letters. One of them did. And at first I was like, okay, I don't even have an option for this. So I fumed over it a little bit. And my daughter is going to take the test. I'll start with that statement right away. She is. When MCAS first was implemented, it was in the late 80s. I think it was 87. 90s?
Early 90s.
Well, they were starting to
1997.
pilot it in the late 80s.
97.
And it was optional. And I know that because I think I was a junior or a senior at the time. And they were sending out pilot tests that had nothing to do with anything. They just wanted to, more or less, fine-tune their curriculum so that when they did implement it and make it procedural, they kind of had a basis for their testing. My parents opted me out of MCAS back then. I understood why they did it. They're trying to come up and formulate a standardized test that would be rigorous in their mind, again, and formulate that so that they can send that to the entire state. So I understand the process a little bit. And back then, the parents didn't get notification, so that's why my parents said, no, you don't have to take that thing. But me personally, my daughter will take the PARCC test. It's a standardized assessment test. It's okay. But to not have the parents have the right and the choice, I think is wrong. I really do. They're going to have enough data collected by the students that they do get a test from to formulate a test worthy for everybody to take. So if you have 10% of the parents, 20% of the parents opt out of this, they're still going to have enough information to standardize a test that would be satisfactory for the entire country. I truly believe that. But to completely eliminate their voice and to completely not let the parent make the decision of what's best for their child, I really have a problem with. No government, no school should really come down to telling me what I should or should not do for my child. And that's where I have the biggest issue. Like I said, my daughter is going to take the test because that's what I'm choosing for her, you know.
I get that impression just because of the speed with which this has been accomplished and with the absolute mandate that has been handed on down to us from on high with no discussion from the ultimate stakeholders, the students, the parents, the teachers, the people who deal with this every single day. This exam is being given so that the company that's already been selected to prepare this test can look and see whether the test is adequate. I mean, this is my own interpretation. I don't know how our schools were chosen versus others. I don't know what the criteria was. But I just think that we should have been given a say in whether we had to participate or not. It's just very unusual for a research project to be imposed upon the public. And I disagree with that completely. But I also have a great fear of allowing people to opt out, that they may get the impression that they're going to be able to opt out of, you know, English class, science class, math class. I don't know if people are going to understand this very, very fine legal distinction.
My fellow Republicans, I say that in jest.
Cue the crickets.
I say that in jest. In all seriousness, I can't think of a prouder moment I can recall in which I can say I'm a member of this board. This is the healthy debate in which I expect that we operate when a hugely serious issue is before us. You've all made intelligent, cogent, and convincing arguments. I don't disagree with much of anything that anybody has said. I'd just like to comment on a few points that have been made. Mr. Chairist, with the upskirting. There was no law making it illegal, which is why the Supreme Judicial Court said that it wasn't a crime. And then what happened is what should occur in a democracy. The legislature acted swiftly and appropriately and introduced a bill that was reported out through committee, through the legislative process, and it was voted on and signed into law by the governor. That's the process. Mr. Rosignol, we the people, in that wonderfully beautiful document that was created almost 250 years ago now, that I love, and Senator Robert Byrd, God rest his soul, used to carry in his breast pocket every day, and used to bring out when believe it or not, I do watch C-SPAN, and used to bring out on the debate on the Senate floor. But the Constitution goes on to talk about a representative democracy. And although civil disobedience is in our history, Mr. McGeaney, and is appropriate, we haven't exhausted all of our remedies. And that's merely my point. We do have a voice. We do have a voice, and our voice just happens to be in a different location than where we sit. But we do have a voice, and we should make a motion, perhaps after this motion is voted upon, to ask our state delegation to introduce legislation, and further make a motion to ask our governor to introduce legislation and opt out of this. This is horrible, a horrible burden put on our students without the input of the citizenry who should be heard from in our democracy. But unfortunately, it is a representative democracy in this case, and we need to ask those that do have our voice by our votes to in fact take up this argument. Thank you. And I couldn't be prouder to be a member of this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mastrocola. So, to the question, there is no plan in place right now for a child that just did not participate on their own in the classroom. Is that right? Because the original question was, did you already come up with any type of consequence for a child who sat down at the desk, you handed them the paper, and they just didn't do it?
There's no plan at this time.
Okay.
Nor will there ever be a consequence.
Right. So I think what this vote is really saying, legally, we may not have the right. It's beyond our scope. The law's not always right. But in my mind, what this vote is doing is letting parents know that if that is the choice they make for a question that they've never been asked, which they should have been asked, nothing's going to happen. Nor should it. That's all that I think this vote is about. We're breaking no law, because what are they going to do to us? What are they going to do about this motion I've made? What are they going to do to that 10-year-old little boy sitting there that just, done? Where does he get to go for the rest of the day? That's what this is really about for me. To ensure those parents that if that is the direction they give their child will continue with their educational day as they should. Thank you.
Roll call vote.
No.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. McGinney?
Yes.
Mr. Charis?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I can just
McGeady,
finish
yes,
up on this
still-
issue.
still have the floor.
And thank you very much for the discussion. I, too, enjoyed it. You can see the emotional side of this issue, and if this were better implemented, I think we would be moving on with some other topics. But to your suggestion, Mr. Hockman, and I couldn't agree more, we need to send some correspondence to our legislators, the state, and I can't think of a better start to what we might consider sending than this report. Again, this is a report from New York State. Again, Governor Cuomo, like our Governor Patrick, a strong proponent of Common Core. He wants to see it implemented, but it became such a terrible, volatile issue in New York. They said, look, we've got to put a pause button on this. Governor Cuomo hand-selected what he called the Common Core Implementation Panel. It's the implementation panel. That's what this study is about. And his hand-selected panel, who also believe in Common Core, they're not trying to stop it, they came up with several strong recommendations to make the implementation go better. And I think we should follow this as a guideline. It's lengthy. You all have a copy of it. I encourage you all to read it. And I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I am going to point out a few no-brainers to how Common Core should be implemented everywhere, certainly in Peabody. 1, protect students from high-stakes testing. Ban standardized bubble tests for young children. We're talking children pre-kindergarten through 2nd grade. Come on, do away with it. What are the next one? Provide better support for parents and teachers. We've heard a lot of that in this dialogue right now. Of course we need to do that. We have to protect students' privacy. We have to establish strict data protection and security requirements. They go so far as to say that the state of New York should establish a new position, statewide position, that does nothing more than to protect the student privacy in these things. I think it's a terrific idea. Improve public trust in the Common Core implementation. The stakeholders were completely out of this process. This is driven by private industry. It's private industry money that's making this happen. It might be a good idea, but I'll tell you something. It's been done with so little transparency, I can't help but be skeptical. Please look at these, because at the next meeting when this is on the agenda, I will be making specific recommendations about that very letter that you suggest we send, Mr. Hockman, and it will include many, if not all, of these elements. Thank you very much.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Thank you. Motion to receive, Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. McGeady. All in favor? Mr. Hockman.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion now that we as a committee send correspondence to our state delegation as well as to the governor asking for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to opt out of the park exam.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. McGeady. Roll call vote.
I would like to
the
comment
motion.
on that.
On the motion, Mr. McGeady.
Just to that point, for those of you who think this is insurmountable, cannot be done, the very bylaws in the park regulations, of which our Mitchell Chester is the chairman, right, requires 10 days' notice to get out. 10 days' notice with the reasons why you're leaving, that's all it takes. This could all be eliminated in Massachusetts by the letter from that commission saying we opt out. Takes 10 days. It's a great motion. I'm happy to support it.
Okay. On the motion, Mrs. Dunn?
I'm sorry. I did not hear the motion. Could you just read it back?
The motion is to send correspondence to our state delegation and to the governor asking that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts opt out of the park testing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Haviland?
Yes.
Mr. Roswell?
No.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. McGee, you all set?
I am. Thank you.